Dear students, welcome to our lesson today in Accounting 213, Unit 1, Closing Process of Temporary Accounts for Services Business. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to 1. Define the permanent and temporary accounts. 2. Explain the purpose of preparing the closing entries of temporary accounts for services business. To start with, first we have to know the difference between temporary and permanent accounts. Temporary accounts, which are also called nominal accounts, are company accounts whose balances are not carried over from one accounting period to another, but are closed or transferred to permanent accounts at the end of an accounting period. So it has to be closed at the end of every accounting period. That is why they are temporary, because those accounts are opened at the beginning of a period to record transactions, and then we have to close them at the end of that period. Examples of temporary accounts: income statement accounts, withdrawal accounts, and income summary account. On the other hand, permanent accounts are accounts that you don't close at the end of the accounting period. They are also called real accounts. Instead of closing entries, you carry over your permanent account balances from period to period. Basically, permanent accounts will maintain a cumulative balance that will carry over each period. Examples of permanent accounts are balance sheet accounts. These are assets, liabilities, and equity accounts. Dear students, as we discussed in the previous slides, examples of temporary accounts are revenues, expenses, and withdrawals. And examples of permanent accounts are assets, liabilities, and owner's capital. Always remember, the closing process applies only for temporary accounts and not for permanent accounts. Why do we have to prepare closing entries for temporary accounts? Main reasons are to reset the temporary accounts balances to zero on the general ledger. After preparing the closing entries, revenues, expenses, and withdrawal accounts will now be zero. The balances of these accounts have been absorbed by the capital account. That helps in summarizing a period's revenues and expenses. Dear student, our second objective of the lesson is to learn how to prepare closing entries for temporary accounts. In preparing closing entries, companies close the revenues and expenses accounts to another temporary account called income summary, and they transfer the resulting net income or net loss from this account to the owner's capital. There are four main steps of closing entries. 1. Closing revenues. 2. Closing expenses. 3. Transfer income summary balance to the capital account. 4. Closing drawings. To start with, the first step is to close revenues. As you know, the normal balance for revenues accounts is credit. But when you close them, you have to make the following entry: debit each revenue account for its balance and credit income summary for total revenues. The second step is to close expenses. As you know, the normal balance for expenses accounts is debit. But when you close them, you have to credit each expense account for its balance and debit income summary for total expenses. The third step is to transfer the income summary balance to the capital account. You have two scenarios here. If the company reported a net income, you have to prepare the following entry: debit income summary and credit owner's capital for the amount of net income. But if the company reported a net loss, you have to debit owner's capital for net loss and credit income summary. The fourth step is to close drawing account. The journal entry of closing the drawing account includes a debit to the owner's capital account and a credit to the drawing account. Dear student, in this example, we will apply what we learned about preparing the necessary closing entries from the available information. The ledger of Mahmoud's company on December 31st, 2020 includes the following accounts with normal balances: Mahmoud Capital 12,000 BD, Drawings 500 BD, Services Revenues 8,000 BD, Wage Expenses 1,300 BD, Supplies Expenses 1,700 BD, and rent expenses of 2,000 BD. You are required now to prepare the necessary closing entries from the available information. The first step, you have to close the revenues account, which is service revenue. You have to prepare one journal entry that debits service revenue account by 8,000 BD and credit an account called income summary for 8,000 BD. The second step is to close the expense accounts. You have to prepare one journal entry that credits the expense accounts one by one as shown: wage expenses 1,300 BD, supplies expenses 1,700 BD, and rent expenses 2,000 BD, and debit the income summary account by the total of 5,000 BD, which is the sum of all expense accounts. The third step is to transfer the income summary balance to the capital account. Prepare a journal entry that clears out the income summary account. This entry transfers the net income of the business to the owner's capital account for BD 3000, which is 8,000 minus 5,000 equals a net income of 3,000. And debit income summary by 3,000 BD, credit capital account for 3,000 BD. The fourth step is to close the drawings account by preparing a journal entry that credits the drawings account for 500 BD and debits the owner's capital account by 500 BD. Here is another example on preparing closing entries. You can extract all the necessary information from the trial balance of Fawaz establishment as on December 31st, 2011. Dear student, please note in this example the circled or temporary accounts need to be closed. The first step, you have to close revenues account, which are consulting revenue of 7,850 BD and rental revenue of 300 BD. You have to prepare one journal entry that debits consulting revenue and rental revenue accounts one by one and credit income summary for the total revenues of 8,150 BD. The second step is to close expense accounts. You have to prepare one journal entry that credits expense accounts one by one: depreciation expense, salaries expense, insurance expense, rent expense, supplies expense, and utilities expenses, each for its balance as shown, and debit the income summary account for the total of 4,365 BD, which is the sum of all expense accounts. The third step is to transfer the income summary balance to the capital account. Prepare a journal entry that clears out the income summary account. This entry transfers the net income of the business to the owner's capital account for 3,785 BD by deducting 4,365 BD from 8,150 BD. Debit income summary by 3,785 BD and credit capital account for 3,785 BD. The fourth step is to close the drawings account by preparing a journal entry that credits the drawings account for 600 BD and debits the owner's capital account by 600 BD. The following is a partial trial balance for Jamal Company. You are required to prepare the necessary closing entries on June 30th, 2018. Try to solve this activity by yourself and check your answers in the next slide. The first step, you have to close revenues accounts, which are fees earned of 1,500 BD and rent revenue of 3,200 BD. You have to prepare one journal entry that debits fees earned and rent revenue accounts one by one and credit income summary for the total revenues of 4,700 BD. The second step is to close expense accounts. You have to prepare one journal entry that credits expense accounts, utilities expense and salaries expense one by one, each for its balance as shown, and debit the income summary account for the total of 1,200 BD, which is the sum of all expense accounts. The third step is to transfer the income summary balance to the capital account. Prepare a journal entry that clears out the income summary account. This entry transfers the net income of the business to the owner's capital account for 3,500 BD by deducting 4,700 BD minus 1,200 BD and debit income summary by 3,500 BD and credit capital account for 3,500 BD. The fourth step is to close the drawings account by preparing a journal entry that credits the drawings account for 700 BD and debits the owner's capital account by 700 BD. Dear students, we reached to the end of this lesson. Thank you very much for your attention. Kindly refer to the student book and EduNet. Read the lesson again and practice with more exercises. Thank you.